So what is spiritual perception? Why is it important? How do we access it? Obviously, spiritually relates to things of the spirit. And perception, that's a whole thing in itself. I had a really in-depth conversation earlier this last year with our internship group about the difference between perception and judgment, or I'm sorry, discernment and judgment. Because the two words show very similar. But as we began to explore and really dive down into that, there was a recognition that there's one big difference between these two words. Discernment is receptive, and judgment is projective. Therefore, projects. It's kind of like the difference between knowing and knowledge. Knowledge comes from information, usually from outside sources. And so we take in this knowledge, this information, and then we know something. But more accurately, we think we know something. Because we received a little piece of information, we've decided that that's true and accurate. And so we log it away here in our mind. And this is the way it is. And therefore we think we know something. And then when some other piece of information comes to us from outside, we compare it. And if it's too far different from what we think we already know, we say that's wrong. Because what I think I know is right. It has to be. I've invested my belief into that. And so then we project our idea of what we think we know about the way things are onto other pieces of awareness or information that come to us. Have you guys, can you see that inside your own experience? When you think you know something and you project that out onto all the other information related to that thing, judging what's right or wrong based on whether it matches up with what you think you already know. Now, perception or discernment, mixing those words because they're related. Discernment comes from perception, to perceive. And to perceive is actually a form of receiving. It's receiving information and awareness from another source. Now, if it's spiritual discernment, that means it's spiritual perception. And so what we're receiving is coming from the spiritual, coming from the invisible, coming from the inner rather than the outer information that we log and believe is true. Perception is determined by our perspective. What that means, and this is an easy way to imagine, stand outside this door right here and take a view. And you can perceive a number of different things from this ground level. Perhaps you can even see the water over in the reservoir. You can see certain things depending on what's blocking your perception because of the perspective that you're holding. Now, go up to the top of Green Ridge, get a different vantage point, a different perspective, and then look out. You'll be able to perceive so much more than what you can just right here at this ground level. Now, that's a physical example and representation. But when we're working with physical things, because we are physical beings here in this physical realm, even talking and communicating is a physical action. But when we relate it to spiritual things, there is this way that we use the terms higher or inner, two different relation points to define spiritual reality. They say go higher, climb the mountain, go to a higher perspective, you'll perceive more. But the other thing, higher versus lower, is inner versus outer. Go deeper in is actually the same thing as go even higher up. It's just a different way of relating to dimensional reality to describe invisible knowledge. And how do we go higher or deeper inner to the Spirit in order to have spiritual perception and spiritual discernment? It's through the portal of stillness. The more that we are able to become still in our thinking, still in our activity, the self-active mind settles down and becomes still, so that it's no longer projecting its ideas of what it thinks that something is in order to compare it against the information it's receiving from within. See, receiving from within is the known. Receiving from outside of ourselves is knowledge. And as the mind stills, and we reach out with our feeling body in order to connect and receive and perceive from whatever our attention is focused on, we are actually opening up space for spiritual discernment to occur. If we can go into the space of not knowing, beyond the space of thinking that we know, maybe embrace, I don't know. Let the mind completely still, go into blank, no think, and then receive. As that happens, things will come. Information exists in the ethers. And as we put our attention on something, receive from that, it informs us. And that is spiritual discernment, spiritual perception. In fact, that's the job of creation, for essences to come into form. So let us let go of what we think we know. Become still. Place our attention and focus on what is in the invisible. And as we let it inform us, we are doing our creative job of bringing essence into form. Thank you.